Hello everybody and welcome back to another video of English No Big Deal. My name is David.
And I'm Maddie.
So in today's pronunciation teaching video, we're gonna do exactly the same thing like the way that we did for the last conversation 9. But this one is specifically for conversation 10. And what is the conversation 10 all about, Maddie?
The reason conversation 10 is so important is because it has to do with apartment hunting. Statistics say that the average American moves 11 times within their lifetime. Now, that is a lot. So if you are living here in North America, some of the vocabulary and phrases will be very helpful if you decide to move or even help somebody move, like I was doing in this case in the conversation. So knowing some of these vocabulary and phrases will help you better communicate in that situation. Along with that, some of the phrases are actually used in day-to-day conversations. So overall, it would definitely help you in your daily life.
With all the interesting points that Maddie mentioned about conversation 10, we hope you guys have already watched the video of the conversation. But if you haven't watched it yet, don't worry. Just click it right here and you'll keep yourself updated with the content of the video.
Now let's jump right in to the first phrase. The first phrase is to ask somebody for a huge favor.
Hey Maddie, can I ask you for a huge favor?
Sounds scary, but sure, what is it?
So what are the pronunciation points that we need to be careful of for this phrase?
So the first point that you guys should be wary of is the word ask. Ask. It ends with the sk sound.
Ask ends with two consonant sounds, the s and the k sound.
And these sounds are basically voiceless. And so you can't say it as zig, zig. It's gonna be all wrong.
I think the next point that we need to be careful of within this phrase is the word favor. The ver. Don't change the v to the f. Don't say favor. That's wrong. Favor.
And also try to distinctly pronounce the sound at the end of the word favor.
Are there any other pronunciation points that we should be aware of?
So it depends on the way that you guys would like to use this phrase. If you say to ask somebody for a huge favor, you're actually using the adjective huge. Then, the next pronunciation point for this phrase is supposed to be upon the word huge. It sounds really easy, but notice that the CH sound has to be distinctly pronounced. And keep in mind that this CH sound at the end of the word huge is actually a voiced consonant. Just same as the word judge or change.
Now those are all of the pronunciation points for this phrase. Now let's go on to the usage. How would you use this?
So this phrase is used when you want to ask somebody to do something for you, especially when you believe that the thing you're asking that person to do for you is not convenient or it might be a little annoying for them. And so this is a very polite way to ask somebody to do something for you. And by using the word favor, that means not only that I prepare you for the attitude and the upheaval that you are going to experience, but I also see your help as something very great, as a favor toward me. And maybe I'm gonna help you back in the future. Or maybe I'm gonna treat you to lunch or something like that as a repayment.
So when you're asking for a favor, that's acknowledging that they are going out of their way to help you specifically. And with that acknowledgement, sometimes that'll make the person you're asking feel a bit happier. Now, when you say this phrase, can I ask you for a favor? This is a question and prompting the other person and letting them know that you're going to ask them to do something for you.
Yes, because here you're asking their permission in order to ask the question. And if they agree, you're gonna continue on and ask the question.
Keep in mind, this one is a polite form, but there's a more direct form used in casual conversations, for example, amongst family or close friends.
Right.
And that phrase is, can you do me a favor and then say what you need done? So maybe, for example, can you do me a favor and wash the dishes for me?
It's like a mom is asking her kid in order to do her a favor, like washing the dishes, cleaning the house, or even doing laundry. Even though the mom doesn't have to be that polite to the kid, but it depends on how good the relationship is and how good the kid is as well. Maybe that kid is a very self-disciplined kid and he's been helping around with a lot of things. But for this event, or for today, the mom is actually busy with work and she's not going to return home until 7 p.m. in the evening. That's why she's asking him in a very polite way, can you do me a favor, right?
Exactly. So this sets the tone for the rest of it. Maybe she knows that the kid might have been busy with homework or something else. And just by saying the phrase, can you do me a favor and wash the dishes, this automatically would put the kid in a better mood. And by putting the kid in a better mood, maybe things will be done really well, which is a benefit for both.
And I think it's good for the kid as well because he's being treated as an adult. Can you do me a favor? And when you hear that word, favor, the person is feeling like, yeah, so what I'm going to help you with is going to be like a favor the way you perceive it. That means my help is going to be appreciated very much by you.
Giving you guys a few more examples. That way this phrase makes more sense. So, David, can I ask you for a favor?
What is it?
Would you mind helping me do the laundry? So by asking this question first, I'm prompting him, letting him know that I'm going to ask him to do something for me. And another example, so if this is a more casual conversation and I'm not being as polite, David, can you do me a favor and do the laundry for me?
All right.
So both ways are correct. The first way, you're asking for their permission first before you ask for the favor. And the second way, you're still being polite, but also direct. Number 2, something is up in, and then a time period.
So the lease on my apartment is up in 2 weeks, so I need to find another place to move in quickly.
The pronunciation you need to be careful of with this phrase is the connecting between is, up, and in. We say these 3 words like one word. Is up in. Is up in.
So we have the z sound at the end of the word is, you link it to up, and then the p sound at the end of the word up, you link it to in. So you have is up in, is up in. Something is up in, and then a time period. So you guys can use this phrase to talk about something that has an expiry date, like a contract, an agreement, or even a ticket, right? So those things have an expiry date. I mean, at some certain point in the future, it's gonna expire. It's gonna be up in that mentioned period. Let's say you have a contract with your current company, that your job is gonna be maintained for 2 years. And then after that, it's gonna be renewed, or maybe you're gonna leave the job, but the current contract is gonna be up in 2 years. Or you can also say the contract with my current company is up in 2 years.
So keep in mind, rather than saying my contract is going to expire in 2 years, saying my contract is going to be up in 2 years, this sounds more natural rather than using expire in this case.
So in this phrase, we use the preposition up. Think about the word up as in complete. Something has to be complete, like if somebody is giving you a glass of juice and that person is telling you to drink it up or to finish it up. That means you're drinking it to the last drop of it. So in this situation, if something is up in 2 weeks or in 2 years, it means that it's going to be complete. It's going to be finished. It's going to be done after that mentioned period.
So since you talked about the preposition up, I'll talk about in. The reason you use in this phrase is because you're using a time period. But if you want to use a time point, then you have to change in to by. So I'll give you 2 examples to clarify. My contract is up in a month. That means 1 month is the time period that I have for this contract. But if I say my contract is up by the end of the month, from now until the very last day of the month, my contract will end at that specific point. So just keep in mind the differences between these two. If you're using a time period, use the word in. If you're using a time point, use the word by. Let's give you guys some more examples so that this phrase makes more sense. So I'll use the time point in my example. So my gym membership is up by the end of this week. I'm using by because the end of this week is the time point.
Since you have one example, I'll have another one as well. My train ticket is up in 2 hours. And with what Maddie just said, after the word in, I have to use a time period. So 2 hours are actually a time period. A period of 2 hours is not a time point, right?
But if you wanted to change that phrase and use it with a time point, let's say my train ticket is up by 12. That
Perfect.
means specifically 12 o'clock, my train ticket's expired, it is no longer valid.
That also means that right now it's at 10 o'clock. And so if it's gonna be up in 2 hours or it's gonna be up by 12, that means right now it's at 10 o'clock. Number 3, to cut it close. Oh, I need to find a place by next week.
You're cutting it really close there.
So for the pronunciation point for this particular phrase, it's pretty clear and easy. All you have to keep in mind is the linking between the word cut and then it. But don't forget to turn the T sound at the end of the word cut into a D sound, a flap D sound, according to North American English. And then you link it to the word it. You have cut it, cut it. You could also say cut it, but I think it's more of a British accent and way to pronounce it.
And since we're teaching North American, change the T to a D. Cut it, cut it.
Right. So to cut it close, so now we're getting down to is usage. So how are we going to use this phrase, Maddie?
If somebody is cutting it close or cuts it close or they cut it close, that means that they are almost failing. It seems almost impossible what they're doing.
So notice the word almost that Maddie is using here. It is extremely important because it indicates that the person hasn't failed doing that yet, but he barely or she barely made it, right? They still succeeded. They haven't failed yet.
So you can use this phrase in the sense that somebody shows up at the very last minute. They don't show up early, but they don't show up late either. They're there at the very last minute, showing up the last second. And another way, maybe somebody else doesn't study for an exam or cram for an exam a week before, but maybe they do it 1 day or 2 days before the exam, and they're cutting it really close. Did they fail? No, they didn't. But they cut it close because they only studied those last 2 days rather than the whole week like everybody else. So some examples can be, she was cutting it close by showing up 10 minutes before her flight. Did she miss her flight? No. She showed up 10 minutes before her flight, but was able to get on the plane.
This example is not realistic because normally if you show up just like 10 minutes before your flight, there are really high chances that you're going to miss your flight. But maybe this lady was lucky because by the time that she showed up at the airport, nobody was there. And so if the airport was not that busy, of course, she could whip through very fast.
So she had a high chance of failing, but somehow she made it.
Another example can be, if you want to be on top of your game, you should never cut it close to the deadlines.
That is very true. If you wait until the last minute to always get your work done, This is cutting it close once again, and there's a high chance that you could fail. So don't cut it close to the deadlines. Number 4, be engrossed with or in something.
Yeah, I know. I've been too engrossed with work and just kept postponing it. I'm basically running out of time right now. That's why I need your help.
The pronunciation points that you need to be aware of for this one is the word engrossed. That final st sound is the voiceless. So don't say zd, zd. Not correct. St, st.
And notice the word engrossed, it has the ed part at the end. It looks like a past tense of the word engross, but it's actually a past participle. Or in this situation, you could also see the word engrossed as an adjective. So be engrossed in or with something. So now if everything is clear for the pronunciation, how about its usage, Maddie?
If you are engrossed in something, that means something that you are doing has your full attention because you have some enjoyment out of it or you're very interested in it.
And the word enjoyment and interest here are really important because it's actually something that you want to do, you are passionate about doing, or you are interested in doing, rather than something that you hate doing, but it's just an obligation or a responsibility that you have to do it. And this explains the reason why this phrase is actually a little bit different compared to the phrase be busy with, be tied with, or be caught up with, or be bound to something. Because these phrases are actually used when you have to do something and you actually don't want to do it.
So some examples. I forgot to go grocery shopping because I was too engrossed in watching the game. I'm enjoying watching the game so much that I forgot to go grocery shopping.
Time passed by so fast that you didn't realize that you had another task of going groceries shopping to complete.
Exactly, yeah.
Or being too engrossed in speaking English perfectly will hinder your confidence in communication.
That holds a lot of truth. If you are too interested in being perfect in English, then it will definitely dampen your confidence.
That's why you shouldn't be too engrossed with making perfect sentences all the time, or else you won't ever be able to be fluent in English.
Number 5, quite a few or quite a bit.
So let's see, from 500 to 1200 a month. I think you have quite a few options.
So the pronunciation point for quite a few, the connecting for quite a. The T in quite changes to a D and connects to a. Quite a. And since I have few in this example, quite a few.
Also, be careful when pronouncing the word few because its vowel is ew, as in cute, mute, or huge. And don't ever say fill, or fill. It's not correct. It has to be few. And when pronouncing this word, stick your lips out the way that I'm doing right now here. And then make the sound ew a little sharp and distinct. Ew, few, quite a few.
And then the next part, quite a bit, just the final sound with bit. You're still going to connect quite a bit. Don't forget that final t sound.
But then for the word bit, be careful with its vowel as well, because if you say quite a bit, then it's not going to be correct and it doesn't make any sense to a native ear.
So the usage for this phrase, quite a few, this phrase is used with countable nouns, things that you can sit down and count, but maybe you just don't want to. So rather than saying there's 5 apples, you can say there's quite a few apples. Or another one, there's quite a few trees. Can you count the number of trees? Yes, you can, but you probably don't want to because there's a lot. So quite a few trees.
And when it comes to countable nouns, some countable nouns in English are maybe not existing in your own language. Maybe it's not countable in your language, but it is countable in English. For example, vegetables. Vegetables. So it's actually a countable noun because I don't know, somehow native speakers of English just decide that vegetables are countable. In Vietnamese, we don't have this word as accountable. I mean, when it comes to vegetable, it has to be uncountable. The opposite goes for the word bread. Bread is a noun, but in Vietnamese is countable as opposed to how it is in English. So it has to be an uncountable noun in English. So you can say a bread or two bread or three bread is going to sound really odd to native speakers. That's why it brings us to the second phrase, quite a bit. And if you want to use bread, then you should use quite a bit instead of quite a few. Because if quite a few is used for countable nouns, then quite a bit is used for uncountable nouns, such as water, electricity, bread, or even sand. But keep in mind, when using the phrase quite a bit, and then after that, you have to use of. Quite a bit of water, quite a bit of bread, quite a bit of sand, or quite a bit of money. But we say quite a few apples and quite a bit of money. And what do they mean, Maddie?
Quite a few apples means you have many apples, and quite a bit of money means you have a lot of money. But let's say you take quite out and you say you have a few apples and a bit of money. That means maybe you have only a couple of apples, like 3. So we have a few apples and a bit of money. Maybe you don't have a lot of money, but you have a little bit. Maybe $3 rather than $100.
So it's not large in quantity, like this example. She has quite a few tests to revise for this week. That means she has a lot of tests and exams to prepare for this week.
Another example, his father left him quite a bit of money when he passed.
Wow. Such a fortune, because quite a bit of money, that means a lot of money that is left behind after the death of his father. Now he's inheriting all the money that his dad left behind. Number 6. Appreciate something or somebody, or appreciate somebody doing something.
Hold on a sec. I think I still have my browser history for those pages and ads.
No problem. I appreciate you taking the time to help me. For this particular phrase's pronunciation, the only thing you should keep in mind is the third syllable of the word, appreciate. Notice that I roll my tongue a little bit to make the sh sound really sharp and strong. Is not going to be the soft s sound. So don't say appreciate, but it has to be appreciate. Same for the word appreciation as its noun. So appreciate and appreciation, not appreciate and appreciation. And that's the only pronunciation point for this particular phrase. Let's move down to its usage. So when are we going to use this phrase, Maddie?
You use this phrase to talk about how grateful you are to somebody for doing something for you, or how grateful you are for something. You can also use this in a passive voice and say, be appreciated. Make sure that it is in past participle. Appreciated, be appreciated. For example, it would be appreciated if you did the dishes.
Or your help toward me is going to be appreciated.
Exactly. So this is the passive form of appreciate. And what we're saying is, I would be grateful if you did the dishes, or I would be grateful if you did something for me. So think of appreciate similar to grateful.
A very common mistake that a lot of people make here when using this phrase is they say, I appreciate your taking the time to help me. Notice that your shouldn't be fitting in this situation because you are using this phrase as you appreciate somebody doing something. So you can't use any possessive form in this particular phrase, but it has to be a pronoun. And to be more exact, it has to be an object form of the pronoun that you're trying to use. Let's say, I appreciate him taking the time to help me with the test last week. Or, I appreciate my sister taking her time to go pick mom up at the airport. So let's give them some more example, Maddie.
One example, I appreciate you taking me to the doctors when I was so sick last week. So, I appreciate you. I'm grateful that you took me to the doctors when I was sick.
Don't say, I appreciate your taking me to the doctor.
That doesn't make any sense if you say, I appreciate your taking me to the doctor.
So, I appreciate you taking me to the doctor. And that's when we use an object form for the pronoun. And after the pronoun, it has to be a verb with ing at the end. However, now we have another one. As an example, I appreciate your efforts and honesty in telling me the truth.
So you're grateful that they put forth the effort to be honest, to tell the truth.
Maybe because a lot of other people won't do it like the way that he did. So that's why I appreciate his effort and honesty in telling me the thing that I didn't know.
Number 7, studio or a small suite for one person. Now, these are types of apartments, and we're just going to combine them into one. So, studio, small suite for one person, or just a regular apartment.
By the way, it doesn't have to be an apartment. Something like a small studio or a small suite for one person is fine too.
It might be looking like the word suit, but don't get them mixed up. It's sweet as in sweets like candy. Sweet.
And so when pronouncing the word sweet, keep in mind that it has the long E sound and it's vowel and it's not the short E sound. So you can say sweet, but it has to be sweet.
Going on to the usages for these phrases. So a studio is sort of an open apartment. The bedroom, living room, and kitchen are all combined into one large room. So it is a common living space. You might have just enough room to fit one bed, a couch, and that might be it.
There's no separation between all the sections that you have in that unit. And it's up to you to decide where you want to sleep, where you want to cook, or where you want to do some work or have a desk for your living room.
Exactly. The only separation is for the bathroom, and that's probably it. And a suite for one person is typically a basement unit. You might have your own bedroom and bathroom, and you might have to share the common spaces like the kitchen and the living room. So you might have to share them with the people upstairs. But there's also the possibility that you will have a separate suite, and that means you have a bedroom, a living room, and kitchen, and a bathroom all to yourself. So there's 2 different cases that this could be, but a basement suite, there's 2 different situations. Just keep that in mind.
Are there any other names for a studio, Maddie?
A studio can also be called a bachelor pad or a bachelor apartment. So a bachelor is a single man, and a studio can be commonly associated with a single man. So just keep that in mind. A studio can also be used in comparison to a bachelor pad or a bachelor apartment.
That means it's only for one person.
Exactly, yeah. Because again, it's just a common open living space. So only one person would be comfortable living there, or maybe sometimes a couple.
And this is very important if you live in North America and you happen to change your living space. And so knowing all of these options might give you an advantage when it comes to deciding the living space that you would like to live in next.
One thing to keep in mind is sometimes a studio can also be used to call an art space or a photography space, but they'll usually put the type of space before the word studio. So they'll say an art studio or a photography studio. So you shouldn't have to worry too much about it. Just pay attention to the word that comes before studio in this case.
And I mean, if you are in that conversation for long, you would probably have the context and the content that they're talking about already. So maybe from that, you'll understand if they're talking about the type of studio that has every light and background setup in order to film or in order to shoot photos is going to be very distinct. So don't worry about that too much.
So a few examples. I'm looking for a studio, so the price is more suitable for me.
Very wise. If you don't have a lot of money to rent anything like high class or super high class, it's going to cost you a lot of money if you rent something is out of your budget.
Typically, studios are within budget because, again, it's a common living space. So a studio is perfect for me as long as it has a reasonable price.
And the next example can be, in winter, the basement suite can be really cold.
That's very true. Typically, the lower suite, the basement suite, is very cold, especially here in Canada.
Especially when the temperatures outside just drop down below minus 30 or minus 20. It's really cold outside, and that's why the lower the basement is, the more cold it's gonna be. Number 8. We have two words here, accommodation and amenity. You know me, I'm not home most of the time, so I don't need anything too fancy. But mainly an accommodation and a few necessary amenities like a parking spot, water, electricity, and most importantly, internet. For the pronunciation for these words is basically very straightforward and clear, but keep in mind for the word accommodation, the last syllable of it has to be starting with the sh sound, a very sharp sh sound instead of the soft s sound. So don't say accommodation. It has to be accommodation. And for the word amenities, it can be in plural as well because amenity is a countable noun. So that's why you can make it a plural by adding an s at the end and say amenities. So it has to be amenities. So it can be amenities. It's going to be really odd to native speakers if you say it that way. So make sure you say amenities or amenity. Alright, so I think the pronunciation for these words is really straightforward and clear. So let's get down to its usage. So when are we going to use these words, Maddie?
So you'll use these words. Firstly, we'll go over accommodation. So accommodation is used to talk about a place of living or even a temporary place to live. Keep in mind, accommodation is also used to talk about an agreement between two people. So for example, there is an accommodation in the house that we don't play music after 9 p.m. Maybe it'll disturb everybody else's sleep if I start playing music at 10 o'clock. So there's the accommodation of not playing music after 10.
Or you guys can use the word accommodation to talk about the agreement or accommodation that a lot of restaurants do or apply with their patrons, specifically or mainly for food allergies. Let's say you're dining in at a restaurant and you have some food allergy. Let's say you're allergic to seafood and the restaurant that you're dining in is going to make some accommodation to make sure that the food they're making for you is not going to come in contact with any seafood, or they're not going to put any pieces of seafood on your plate to make sure that you are healthy. So moving on to amenities. So what should we keep in mind for the word amenity, Maddie?
So amenities are things that are added on to the rent, and some of these are the basic necessities for comfortable living. Some examples: electricity, running water, and heat. These are the basic amenities here in North America. A lot of places, either the amenities will be included in rent or they won't be included. But again, these are the basic amenities.
In order to make a living space more livable and comfortable.
Like if our unit didn't have heat in the middle of winter here in Canada, it would be freezing cold and we would probably have to walk around in winter coats in the house, which is not ideal. So I love having heat in my apartment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if a unit here in North America or specifically in Canada doesn't have electricity or heat, that place is not going to be rented by anyone.
I don't think anybody would want to live there.
Mm-hmm. So those are the basic amenities. So basic things that meet your basic needs. So what are some of the other amenities out there, Maddie?
Some other amenities might be a parking spot, a gym, or even a pool in your area. And these are luxury amenities. They're not necessary, but they're nice to have.
But they're not a must-have.
Exactly. And another amenity that some luxury apartments have around here is 24/7 security guards. That one is a nice luxury amenity. It's not a basic need. You don't need a 24/7 security guard, but it's definitely nice. Makes you feel more safe. So one example with amenities is I want my next apartment to have the basic amenities included in the rent, like heat, water, and electricity. That means that my landlord will take care of these 3 bills in my rent. I don't have to worry about receiving the bills in the mail later on in the month.
Everything is included in the monthly rent that you pay the landlord.
Exactly.
So since you have an example for amenity, I'll have another example for accommodation. So a hotel can be a temporary accommodation if you are on a short trip.
Very true. You don't want to look for a place to have to rent when you're on a trip. So a hotel is a great accommodation. Number 9, be snatched up.
You can call them to book a viewing. Also, if you're going to look, I'd do it soon because not only do you have to be out of your apartment by the end of this week, but also these apartments will be snatched up pretty quickly since this is a desirable area.
So with this phrase, what is the pronunciation we need to be careful of?
Of course, the word snatched, snatched. So its ending sound is going to be cht, cht. And keep in mind, once again, these sounds are actually voiceless consonants. So cht, don't say jd, jd. No, it's wrong. Say snatched, snatched. Be snatched up, be snatched up. And the linking sound between the T sound at the end of the word snatched and the word up is another point that you should keep in mind. So be snatched up. Link the T to up. We have snatch and then up. Snatched up, snatched up. And when you say it fast enough, it's gonna be snatched up. After linking the T to the word up, the remaining ch sound still has to be distinctly pronounced. So don't turn it into an S sound as opposed to a lot of non-native speakers do, because after hearing native speakers say it, they believe that it has to be pronounced as sh, sh. Turn it into sh, sh. They'll say snatched up, snatched up. It's all wrong. It has to be still snatch, sh, sh, and then up. That's why you need to make sure when you first practice saying this phrase, try to say it at a slow speed separately for each and every single sound first. And when you get used to it, try to speed up a little bit. So at first you say snatch, up, snatch, up, snatch, up. And then when it comes to the point that you are familiar with it, you can speed it up a little bit and say snatched up, snatched up.
So now that the pronunciation of snatched up is clear, let's move on to its usage. So if something is snatched up, that means it is taken away quickly. In our example in the conversation, the apartments get snatched up quickly. That means the apartments are taken away quickly. Somebody rented them very fast. Let's go on and use another example for maybe a more tangible object. If I want to snatch something away from David, take it away really quickly. He doesn't have time to react. So I snatched his phone away.
Yeah, it's a very common problem in Asian countries, especially Vietnam, because if you carry something like a purse or your iPhone while walking in the street, somebody like a snatcher will snatch at your phone. So they're gonna take away or grab the phone or the purse that you're wearing away from you very fast, and you don't have enough time to react to it. And by the time that you notice that your phone is just snatched away, it's already gone.
So, snatch, again, taken away quickly. And in our case, we were using it for an untangible object. So maybe you see the ad for the apartment. It gets snatched up quickly. That just means it gets rented very quickly. You don't have time to even call the person to book an appointment to view the apartment.
But more importantly, we use the word up here. The preposition up means it's already gone. It's already finished. It's done. It's over. It's no longer available for you to come and book a viewing.
Exactly, yeah. So up, finished, gone, just like you said.
Now let's get down to some examples.
One example, I gotta sign up for the program today because spots get snatched up really quickly.
Because for a program, there is a limited number of seats and people that can sign up for that program. And if you're not in a hurry right now, if you're not fast in signing up for the program, someone may take your spot. And so your spot is going to be snatched up. And if all the spots are being snatched up, that means there's no available seat for you for that particular program anymore. You have to go find another program to register.
Or wait until the next time there's an opportunity.
Right. So my other example can be my opportunities for promotion at work have been snatched up by someone else.
Oh, so that means that somebody else quickly took the position that you were looking for. Number 10, intimidating.
But do you need my help driving it or something?
I think so, because I've never driven one before, so those large trucks are a bit intimidating to me to drive.
The pronunciation points you need to keep in mind here are all of the short E sounds. So, intimidating. All of those are the short E sounds.
Don't say intimidating. It's gonna be really weird. So, intimidating. And so, intimidating is an adjective, right? And we also have the verb intimidate. So if you intimidate somebody, that means you scare them. You make them nervous and less confident in doing something.
And in the case of the conversation we had, was David felt intimidated to drive the truck. He thought they were intimidating to drive.
Because I've never driven one before. That's why when it comes to driving something larger than what I am comfortably driving or used to driving, I can't do it because it's really intimidating. I mean, I become a little more scared and less confident in being able to drive it.
Some similar words for intimidating are nerve-wracking, frightening, and harrowing.
So the first example for this word that I have in mind is solo traveling can be a bit intimidating, especially when you don't speak the language or you don't know much about the place.
That's true. Solo traveling is intimidating. It can be frightening, scary, and you don't feel as confident, especially, like you said, when you don't speak the language. So solo traveling is intimidating.
Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen with you while you're on that trip, right?
Exactly. And another example is many people find public speaking to be intimidating. So speaking to a crowd is frightening, scary, and makes you feel less confident in that situation.
Or you can also substitute the word intimidating for the word nerve-wracking by saying public speaking is really nerve-wracking for a lot of people. Number 11, to repay somebody for doing something or to repay something to somebody. So I can choose a 10-foot truck if you can manage it, and I'll promise I'll repay you very well. And the pronunciation points for these phrases can be upon the word repay. repay. You don't say repay because the first syllable has the short E sound for its vowel, so you can't say repay, but instead you have to say repay or repay.
So repay is used in a way that you pay back the money or even the favor that somebody has done for you. Its noun form is repayment. And again, all you're doing is giving back what you received.
So make sure that you use the exact same order when it comes to using these phrases, because if you use a different order, it might not be correct. And now in order to make it more clear for you guys, so you can actually apply it, let's go through some of the examples. So what's the first example we have here, Maddie?
I'll repay the money I owe you soon.
So it's a very common one. So you lended me some money before and now I repay it back to you. Or another example can be, if you help me pass this exam, I'll repay some movie tickets to you. Or you can also say, I'll repay you some movie tickets.
So you're going to give me some movie tickets if I help you?
Exactly. Because you are doing me such a big favor. So in order to return your help, I'm going to repay you with some movie tickets.
Number 12, to lend somebody a helping hand or to give somebody a hand.
I don't mind lending a helping hand. And what would you do to repay me?
What's the pronunciation we need to keep in mind for these phrases?
It's obvious with the word helping because the word help itself is a real struggle for a lot of non-native speakers that come from a country in which their native language doesn't even have the L sound. You have to make sure that you roll your tongue to make that L sound a little clear. And when you say it, it's going to make more sense to the ears of native speakers.
Helping. Making that O sound clear. Helping. So to give somebody a hand or to lend somebody a helping hand, that means that you are assisting them in some way. So maybe you give them a hand by carrying some heavy groceries, or you lend them a hand by helping build something.
So instead of like asking the person, hey, can you help me with this? You say, hey, can you give me a hand with this?
Or even, can you lend me a hand with this?
I don't know somehow, but when somebody is using these phrases toward me, especially when they need my help with something, I find it really friendly and I find myself more open and willing to help them with the thing they're asking me to do for them.
Using the example that we had in the conversation, I don't mind lending a helping hand for packing. It's coming off really friendly, very casual. You can tell that we're closer friends because I'm saying, I don't mind lending a helping hand. This makes the other person feel more comfortable and maybe even being honest, like, yeah, I do need some help. So another example is she gives the old lady a hand by lugging her heavy suitcases to the car. This just means that she's assisting the old lady by carrying the heavy suitcases.
Or another example can be, I'll lend you a helping hand to finish cooking if you do the laundry right now. Number 13, pitching in or to pitch in something.
No need to do that much. I think dinner would be just fine. And since you're in such a hurry, do you need any help packing? I don't mind pitching in.
The pronunciation point for these phrases is on pitching in, the connecting between pitching and in. So there's two different ways that you could do it. You could say pitching in, having the ing sound really clear, and connecting it to in, pitching in. Or you can also drop the g sound on pitching and say pitchin', pitchin' in. Bring that n sound over to the in, pitchin' in, nin, pitchin' in.
To pitch in something means to take part in something, or to participate in something, or to join in something in order to help with an activity or to finish some pieces of work with other people.
So if you're pitching in, that means that there are multiple people helping, maybe 5, 6 people, and you decide to pitch in on the activity. That means you decide to help those other 6 people to do the work needed.
So going back to the situation that we had in the conversation between me and Maddie, she said, I don't mind pitching in. I don't mind pitching in. So notice just one thing that you should take away for this particular sentence is the word mind. Because after the word mind, every single verb you want to use after the word mind has to come with an ing part at the end. So she said, I don't mind pitching in. But you can also say, I don't mind lending you a helping hand, something like that.
One really great example, I don't mind pitching in and helping with the beach cleanup.
Wow. That everybody is doing that, is helping with the cleanup on the beach. And so you don't mind pitching in. You don't mind helping them.
Because it's really great for the environment. It excites me and I want to help.
And I do have another example as well. So it can be, the decoration is done very quickly thanks to everyone pitching in.
Ooh, good. Yes, everything will go very quickly as long as everybody's helping. If it's just one person, it goes very slow. But if everybody is pitching in and doing some of the work, it could take less time. Number 14, this is an idiom, like shooting fish in a barrel.
Don't worry about it. I just need you to drive the truck because most of my stuff is small. I also disassembled my desk and bed, so loading them onto the truck is like shooting fish in a barrel.
What are the pronunciation points we need to be careful of?
The first word, shooting. Shooting. We turn the T sound into a flap D sound and we have shooting instead of shooting. Not shooting, but shooting. And the reason being is that we have the T sound right here is standing in the middle of two vowels. That's why, according to the rule in North American English, the T sound in this situation is favorably turned into the D sound and then we say shooting. And the next pronunciation point is the linking between fish in a. So these three words are all jumbled up as if you're saying just one word. And the last pronunciation point for this particular phrase is upon the word barrel. So the L sound, the ending L sound. Roll your tongue a little bit and make it a little bit more clear.
So the use of this idiom is just to emphasize how easy something is. So for example, shooting fish that are in a barrel is much easier than it is to shoot at fish that are in a river. What kind of person does that? I don't know, but it's easier. Going back to the conversation, David said it would be easy to pack everything into the truck because he already disassembled a lot of the bigger things and probably mostly packed all of his smaller things.
Or a similar phrase for this one can be a piece of cake. So instead of saying loading everything onto the truck is like shooting fish in a barrel, I can say loading everything onto the truck is like a piece of cake. The first example for this phrase can be running an online business is not like shooting fish in a barrel. Why? Because it's difficult. It's not an easy thing to do.
So you're emphasizing, in this case, how difficult it is to run an online business.
It means totally opposite because I make a negative sentence, not like shooting fish in a barrel.
And another example, some people were born with some special talents, so everything they do is like shooting fish in a barrel.
Number 15, big time. But anyways, thank you so much. I owe you big time for this one. The pronunciation for this one is pretty simple, but one thing to keep in mind that the g sound at the end of the word big, like I said in the previous video already, so big, it ends with a g sound. So make sure you don't mistake it for the k sound and don't say big. It has to be big, big, big. And if you make it a stop g sound, it's still there, right? So try to make that sound a little bit so it's gonna be more clear in the ear of native speakers.
So big time is used to mean to a great extent. Now, big time is an adverb. Do not mistake it for its noun form, big time, because then that means it is your great opportunity or
a very special moment. You don't see it every day. You don't experience it every day.
So it's very unique and special in that manner. So that is the noun form of big time. But the way that we were using it in the conversation, your help is appreciated big time. With this being pretty straightforward, I think some examples will help clarify the use of this phrase.
So the first example can be, good education can help people be successful in life big time. That means it's going to play a very big role in order to help people who have good education be successful in their life.
And another example is, don't be stupid, otherwise you'll get in trouble big time. This is very true because if you do something that is not smart, maybe you get yourself into trouble by trying to shoplift, you can get in trouble big time. And that means maybe you'll go to jail or prison, something like that. So be careful and don't be stupid.
Alright, so we just walked you through 15 phrases, expressions, and words that are the most important in our Conversation 10.
And we hope that you guys find this video helpful. If you did, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on the next one.
Also, after watching this video, you might have had a better understanding of all the phrases and expressions that we use in Conversation 10. So don't forget to go back to the video and rewatch it to see if you understand it better this time.
The reason you have to go back and rewatch the video is because you want to gain a deeper understanding. And the deeper understanding that you have of the phrases we've used, that'll help you use it in your daily life. And that'll also better prepare you when these same phrases are used when somebody else is talking to you. That way you understand immediately and you don't have to worry.
If you guys like this video or have an opinion about how we can improve this type of video or content in the future to best help you achieve English at home and through online, please leave a comment down below.
That is it for today's video. We hope that you find it helpful and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.